Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra Nalini. This is chapter 7, part 3. When everything was assembled, I said, I'm in the mood for walking, and for safety purposes, I will keep my lamp within the area, and for those trapped within it, time will be frozen. And for them, the relocation will feel as if it happened in the blink of an eye. So, who wants to travel the roads with me and see the wonders of the forest or the world outside? I was 7 of my fairy friends, whom I refer to them based on their butterfly genus, and Vaikus volunteered for the experience, and Hermione seemed a bit curious about going out. However, her fears kept her from volunteering, and without much further ado, I had my fellow travelers around me, and then I played my tune, and the area manifested, and the area grew around my shield, and I compressed the area until it was swallowed within my area. And when my domain entered my area, all that was left behind was an unnaturally flat, 30 feet deep crater, and it seemed as if an entire chunk of the forest had been geometrically sliced off. Heck, some of the trees were even cut in perfect symmetry. And I wonder with great amusement how the elves will react to this turn of events. It's like, you take like a whole portrait of the forest like that, and teleport it to another realm. One of my fairy friends, whom I shall call Hesperi, exclaimed, "Gosh, you are way too strong." And in her excitement, her red wings with black and white stripes sprinkled red fairy dust all over the barren land, and the dull brownish newlyweds Buckeye and Buggy intoned a fairy song of victory. And the old black crimson rose simply stared sternly at the scene, and she made mental notes of everything supernatural that I did. And Haley, who had been with me since the very beginning, simply sat on my head. Cersei's blue simply said nothing. Then again, he always said nothing. This mute fairy had developed a strange sort of friendship with Vaikus during that long week, and they used to spend long hours talking with one another, quote unquote. And I flew over the forest and landed about a few yards away from the closest human town. And it happened to be the same town which had gotten raided twice as a result of my song of madness. And as I walked closer, I sensed that it had been abandoned. All the humans had left out of fear of the maddened elves, and everything in the town looked burned or broken. And the only building in one piece was the inn, and I went inside and sat at the bar, and many of the beer bottles in the counter were still there intact, and it almost seemed like the people had left in a hurry. And Vaikus sat in one of the dusty high tables, and he grabbed one of the half-turned mugs, and he frowned. And he cleaned it with the ends of his leaves. Smelling the air, I noticed that a storm was coming. I said to my fairy friends, "We should lay low here for now. A storm is coming." And my fairy friends, acting as my eyes, started scanning the entire inn. And Cersei Blue discovered 60-year whiskey that Vaikus drank with pleasure, and like any sentient creature, Vaikus could not pass up any minor indulgence. Then again, as of late, I was starting to doubt my assessment of him. Anyhow, the bald couple found the ugliest burnt doll I had ever seen, and Hesperi found a room that was not burnt up. And we had to force a lot to enter inside, and though everything was dusty, it was still more or less in one piece. The room had a single queen-size bed, and it had a fireplace and some dry firewood behind it, and it had a nightstand and a clean urn for your pool. And it had a single window with a great view of the entire town, and I could see the rain splashing against the window. Quincy rose sneezed, and she went inside, and covering her nose, she said, "My, humans are so filthy." And we took some time to dust off the place, and from time to time Vaikus took a sip of whiskey, and Vaikus was not much of a day drinker. Heck, the elf forest was a dry region. Still, he did handle his liquor well, for whatever the hell he truly was. And when we were done, Vaikus lighted up the fire, and I opened the nightstand and saw that it had a clean bed linens, and I took one for myself, and the others arranged it in a way to form a tiny bed on top of the nightstand for my tiny fairy friends. And for dinner, I got a fruit from within the forest that had been frozen inside my area. And we ate a meal with excitement, and while we ate, we chatted about everything we had seen, and Vaikus and Cersei Blue took the time to resume their usual conversations. Most of the time they looked as if they were having a staring contest. It was silly shit. And when night fell, we went to bed, and my fairy friends slept peacefully with the certainty that was washing over them. And in my stillest hour, my mind wandered, and I began to think of Nalini again. And like I had predicted, the entire elf community had been thrown into a panic. And even Grimiere felt he could not ignore the disappearance of 1/4 of the elf forest. However, what caught most their attention was the lack of sound in the forest, and they could not hear the sound of any living thing in it. And the animals they used to take for granted were gone, and now in place they had a complete and utter silent forest. And as it always happened, this silence gave Vaikus a stronger influence over the forest, and when he had entertained me, he had taken the light of 2 unwary elf soldiers. And now that he was full, he rested his head on my shoulder, and I watched his easy, regulated breath and wondered what could be passing through his mind. Indeed, his mind was a wonder in and of itself, and his influence spread like a gentle, silent breeze that you barely felt. As it always happened, when 2 soldiers lost their lives, the 2 girls had to lose theirs to rekindle their fire. By now things had become obvious, and when men and upper-class women lost their lives, it was the poor woman who suffered. And due to the first war with Bersame, the city had a surplus of women, and naturally speaking, for every 1 elf born, 3 female elves joined the tribe. And Mother, advised by the moon, had conditioned the artificial elves in a way that promoted reproduction, and via this method, the primordial elves combined with the artificial elves increased their numbers quickly. In the eventuality, the elves had no males nearby. The artificial elves had the ability to change gender, and the females also became men during wartime. And I think those abilities might have made them a bit glitchy, thus triggering the dark elf mutation. Mother attributed the mutations to the soul of the original artificial elf. After all, primordial elves were immune to the light-stealing ritual, and mostly because they had no light to be stolen. And looking back, I think that the anomaly started with the elves' so-called birth control method, and the tribe in specific did not know how their bodies work, and when Grimiere started his cult, he did away with all practices and memories relating to his own life, and long story short, his priest took to performing female infanticide, and the 4 female babies were killed right after their life was stolen, and what life would remain was fed into Grimiere's familiar, an albino serpent called Lara, and in no time she became the goddess worshipped by both elves and humankind. And for all the blessings she delivered, nothing could erase her bloody origin. And to counterbalance her evil, Vaikus came into this world. And I hope this gave you a good idea of the sort of malice that Grimiere brought upon this world. Then again, these are all theories strung together by observations and a lot of mind reading into Grimiere's memory. Time, bro?
7 minutes.
Speaking of Grimiere, at that moment he was walking the empty part of the forest, and the place simply looked unnatural to him. And even I must admit that I took things overboard, and to mess with him, I got in contact with Artsy, the guardian of the earth, not planet Earth, but of the dirt. And unlike the regular guardians of this world, Artsy was one of the originals, and she existed before there was life on Saturn, and from her womb came the oceans and the water, volcanoes and vegetation. Anyhow, I contacted her and asked her to record at an unnatural rate the forest I had taken away. And at first the ground shook around Grimiere, and from the ground there sprouted tiny tree saplings that grew to mature trees in a matter of seconds, and the lake I had taken away was refilled by groundwater, and in no time the place looked like its former self, aside from the absence of animals. Grimiere sensed the presence of the goddess, however he was not able to recognize her true powers. He naturally assumed that I was messing with him, and at this point in his life he was too fed up with everything to care. And he made his way back into the castle, and by the time he made it back, it was nighttime. And he watched the empty hall was lighted by blue flame torches, and somehow the light they cast made the palace look even darker. And the fires had taken the strange blue tone due to the proximity of the goddess. And while walking, he heard a strange song, and it came from a voice he did not recognize. Imagining that it was me, he simply went on his merry way, and little did he know that Oberon Succubus was singing to him, and my attention shifted to the Succubus, the demon wearing the flesh of Oberon's wife. Smiling, she asked, "Do you like my singing?" "It sounds like bloody hell," I responded. The creature was currently using the name of Meridiana, and She smiled. She said in a mocking voice, "I don't miss, my dear Nalini, and I am surprised you left the body seeing as though you wanted it so much. Whatever possessed you to depart?" You already know the answer. You already know the answer, Meridiana. Her smile widened in a natural fashion, and I could feel the demon stirring inside of her, and her eyes had the look of a madman. And I shifted my attention elsewhere, seeing as though the creature was planning a most wicked deed indeed. And the last person I checked on was Nalini, and she was combing her hair in front of her mirror, and she wore an immaculate nightgown which left her shoulders exposed, and to beat away the darkness she had lighted a candle, and it seemed like a flickering from time to time, even though the night was still dark. Heck, ever since I had taken out the animals, Vaikus had solidified his dominion over the forest, and just like Meridiana, Nalini found the silence unbearable. And she had taken to singing to fight away the silence, and as she sang, she saw a pale face reflected in the mirror, and turning around she saw Grimiere looming over her. And she gave a sigh of relief when she recognized his face, and for a moment she had imagined I had returned. In a somber voice she said, "I detest this forest more than ever." He stroked her shoulder gently, and Nalini passed her cheek over his hand, and this caress made her hair stand on end, and the affection he was showing her made her really jealous, and the thought that he would defile my favorite toy annoyed me. To distract her, I said to Nalini, "You know, the flute has nothing to do with my mind control." When she heard my voice, she started looking about in fright, and Grimiere realized that I had made contact with Nalini. Softly he asked, "What did she say?" Timidly she responded, "Something about the flute not having anything to do with her mind control." "I figured as much," remarked Grimiere. "Is she a goddess, perhaps?" asked Nalini. "I doubt it. She's more akin to a demon," said Grimiere more to himself, Grimiere made his way up to the mage tower, and unlike the rest of the palace, the flame held bright and red, and they did not look tainted by the presence of Artsy, and Grimiere was still strong in his domain, and when he opened the door to his study, the silver flames covered the entire room. And these flames, however, did not burn its surroundings, and Grimiere passed through the flames, and at its center stood a tiny idol of a serpent wrapped around a starlight street. He kneeled before the idol, holding his hand in the universal prayer position. This one. In a languid voice, Lara said, "We are not alone." I know, said Grimiere. "Even if I could have true piracy, it would not take her much effort to start siphoning my memories." "Odani found a way to block her," remarked Lara in a hissing voice. "So I heard," said Grimiere. "Alas, while he grows stronger yet, we become weaker." "You knew this dream would not last forever," said Lara sadly. "Aren't gods supposed to be eternal?" demanded Grimiere. "Your human blood betrays you, Grimiere. How very human of you to desire permanence," said Lara mockingly. In a dark tone she said, "Indeed, my cult is dying, and without my proper worship, my powers diminish. These days, the name Bersame is in everyone's lips." Time, bro?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
"So it has been for the last 200 years, remarked Grimiere. Grimiere remembered the first time he met Bersame. About 195 years ago, a plague of war swept the land. A band of berserkers led by Bersame and his 21 generals started conquering the land. And the first region he conquered was Verageddon. It was the berserker tradition that the strongest warrior would inherit the throne. And one day, Bersame came out of nowhere, and he challenged the king to a duel. And after his victory, in 3 years, he organized the rival berserker tribes into something that resembled a federation. And under his command, he had the 21 tribal leaders, all whom he had defeated in a 21-to-1 match. And his ferocity won him many allies, and in no time he had an army of 5,000 warriors. And he even tamed a few dragons, a sphinx, and a minotaur. And due to the rudimentary nature of the berserkers, no one took Bersame seriously until it was too late. Bersame had acquired military knowledge and ingenuity, and for every warrior he lost, the enemy lost 1,000. And there were even rumors that Bersame had single-handedly obliterated an army of 10,000 men. Alright, we'll leave it here. Bye-bye and God bless.